back on a sustainable path.
You're definitely going to see some students who will no longer qualify, and then the question will beg itself of whether or not they can actually finish their degree.
The Ontario government is making some big changes to the cost of colleges and universities, but there is concern it is going to make higher education less affordable. The Ford government is moving to cut the cost of university and college tuition in the province. It is expected to save every student hundreds of dollars a year, but they are also making major changes to the Ontario Student Assistance Program. Greg Ross joins us live now from the U of T. And Greg, we knew that the tuition cut was coming, but we didn't know what was going to come with it.
That's right, Dwight, and it's these other changes that have come with it that have really caught many students that I spoke with today off guard. Changes to things like OSAP, student grants, and how students repay their loans. And it's these changes that have many students feeling confused today and wondering what impact this is going to have on their future.
This is an initiative, a plan to make post-secondary education affordable and accessible to students.
The Minister of Training, Colleges and Universities says by slashing tuition 10% across the board, college and university students can expect savings of hundreds of dollars per year.
And for a student attending an Ontario college, they will see a savings of, on average, $340. Students pursuing a general arts and science degree at an Ontario university will see their tuition reduced by an average of $660.
But critics say the savings only mask other changes in the plan that could end up costing students more in the end.
I think it's like a bait and switch. Like, you know, you go to the showroom and you see this fancy car in the window, and then they drive you off with a jalopy, right? That breaks down a block away.
In addition to the tuition reduction, the PC government has also restructured the Ontario Student Assistance Plan, which helps students pay for tuition through grants and loans. The majority of grants will now go to families with an annual income of less than $50,000. But the old plan made it possible for low-income students to cover their entire tuition with grants. That has been eliminated.
The Auditor General's report indicated the costs had ballooned and that this was not sustainable. It was unsustainable for the future.
The threshold to qualify for a student loan is also changing.
We saw the government subsidizing high-income earners, people with $175,000 worth of income.
That was the threshold under the Liberal government. Under the new plan, students must now come from families with incomes under $140,000 to qualify for OSAP. That has many students worried about their future.
You're definitely going to see some students who will no longer qualify, and then the question will beg itself of whether or not they can actually finish their degree.
Students will now also start incurring interest on their OSAP loans as soon as they graduate, as opposed to a 6-month interest-free grace period under the old system.
That 6-month grace period was meant to be, you know, a grace period to let us sort of, you know, get a job and start building up funds in our savings account in order to pay off without the interest. So now hearing that kind of makes me more stressed.
There are also concerns about the potential long-term effects this tuition reduction could have on the quality of post-secondary education. A 10% tuition cut would take about $360 million away from universities and $80 million from colleges.
Is there going to be an operating shortfall because of this? Will students pay for this with larger class sizes and fewer professors?
Now, the province says that colleges and universities are simply going to have to absorb the loss of that revenue and adapt. Dwight?
So, Greg, it's not just tuition fees that are being cut, but students will also now have control over additional fees?
That's right. Now, while there will be some mandatory fees for things like health and counseling and things like sports and academic activities, there are other things that students can now opt out of. Fees for things like student accessories, some student groups, and other things like that. Now students can opt out of. And some students that I spoke with are very happy about that because they say it could save them hundreds of dollars per semester. But there are other students who say that they think those programs are essential and they think that it's going to affect campus life and it's also going to affect social programs around campuses as well, Dwight.
Greg, thank you. Another change from Queen's Park, this one with no official release and no fanfare. MPPs have increased their housing allowances in response to Toronto's hot real estate market. The Canadian Press has obtained documents that show the monthly rental allowance went from just over $1,900 to $2,300, a jump of just over 20%. It applies only to MPPs who live at least 50 kilometers from Queen's Park. The hike was called necessary by both the PCs and the NDP, citing the higher rental prices in the GTA. Liberal MPP Michael Couteau said it makes politicians look bad, adding they continue to say that everyone's going to have to sacrifice, but for some reason, they're not part of that sacrifice. The way money is spent for health services in Ontario is also about to change. Coming up, we'll bring you the PC government's plan to scrap the local health integration network. But first,
hundreds of victims defrauded out of thousands of dollars. I'm Chris Glover. Remember that debit card taxi cab scam I told you about last year? Well, tonight I can tell you about the arrests. That's coming up.
It took just over an hour for a jury to find a Toronto woman guilty today of terror charges tied to an attack at a Canadian Tire in 2017. The Crown says Reynab Dugmash was clear then she was acting for the benefit of ISIS, and she did not present a defense at trial.
This was an unusual prosecution, an unusual litigation in the sense that Ms. Dugmash she chose not to retain counsel, and she did not participate to the same extent as accused often participate. So that raised some challenges for the Crown and the court.
Dugmash admitted to going after workers at this Cedarbrae Mall Canadian Tire with a golf club and a butcher knife in July 2017, all in an effort to help ISIS. She was charged with 2 counts of assault with a weapon, 1 of carrying a weapon, and 1 of leaving Canada for the purpose of committing a criminal offense. That last charge is linked to a trip she took in 2016, trying to get to Syria to join ISIS. She was stopped in Turkey after her brother tipped off police. Toronto police are releasing video tonight of a New Year's Day attack that left a man seriously injured, and a warning: the images may be disturbing to some viewers.
See at this point that blue Dodge Charger that pulls out and around what I believe to be an Uber stop there. There was a verbal interaction between them at that point down there.
It happened at Queen and Bathurst just after midnight on January 1st. The victim, David Shelnut, was walking with a woman when the suspects in a passing car yelled out a lewd remark. Shelnut then picked up a garbage bag and threw it at the car. The men got out of the vehicle and started fighting with Shelnut. One suspect knocked him to the ground, another hit him as he lay unconscious on the sidewalk. The suspects ran back to their car and took off. Shelnut was in a coma, but investigators say he's now recovering.
He's recovering. He's talking, and he's able to walk around.
The suspects are facing aggravated assault charges. They fled in a B5 Blue 2019 Dodge Charger SXT. Police haven't been able to determine the license plate yet. Investigators are asking anyone who has dashcam footage of the car or recognizes the suspects to contact them. And York police are hoping you can help them catch 2 people who stole a woman's necklace in Newmarket, knocking her to the ground as they made their escape. The victim was walking in the Davis Drive and Eagle Street area last Friday afternoon when she was approached by the suspects in a black 4-door Chrysler. They asked for directions, then removed the 74-year-old victim's necklace and tried to steal her bracelets. As they drove away, they knocked her to the ground. The suspects are a man between 30 and 40 years of age and a woman about 50 to 55. Investigators say they both had blonde hair and spoke Farsi. Multiple arrests and hundreds of charges laid, all connected, police say, to a scam we've been warning you about for years. It involves debit cards and taxi cabs, and Toronto police say hundreds of thousands of dollars in money was stolen. Chris Glover is live at Union Station. Chris, police have a warning for people tonight.
Toronto police say they've only taken a dent out of this alleged scam, and they fear that it continues. So tonight, a warning from police: if you're getting in a cab, pay more attention.
$1,000 in ATM, $2,000 from an ATM.
Janny Yates tallies up $7,000 worth of fraudulent withdrawals in December.
We thought, oh no, how am I going to buy Christmas presents?
Like hundreds of other victims of the taxi cab debit card scam, she didn't see it coming.
And he said to me, oh, I can't give you change. So he said, but do you have a debit? And I said, yeah, I do. And I gave him my debit card. Never thought a thing of it.
The alleged scam is part tech, part sleight of hand. The customer's PIN is electronically recorded on an altered debit machine. Police say it sends an error message and the customer hands it back to the cabbie. The driver switches the card with another from the same financial institution, typically one they've already defrauded and drained. Then, with the new victim's card and PIN, police say the accomplice drains the account.
Well, the thing that frightened me was that it was myself who noticed and not the bank.
The bank rebated her account. Police say one bank reported more than $1 million in losses to the scam. Police executed 3 search warrants and seized a debit machine and financial documents, leading to 5 arrests. Taxi drivers we spoke to say fraud can happen in any industry.
You could see any people in any dress. Could be taxi driver, could be police officer, could be, the radio showman. Everybody could be that one.
Toronto police say the cab companies are not directly involved and are helping authorities. But in some cases, the alleged crooks could be using the vehicles of unsuspecting family members.
There could be some irresponsible individual who is handing out a vehicle to someone who's not properly licensed or shouldn't be driving, but we have very strict policies about that.
Beck Taxi has taken preventative measures like allowing people to pay with their phones and ensuring all legit debit machines have Beck branding.
And the driver should not take your debit card. This is what I cannot stress enough, and we're having these conversations with drivers.
You're like Paranoid City.
I am. I'm Paranoid City.
Jenny Yates, aka Paranoid City, has taken precautions too. Her name is now on her card. Her limit is drastically reduced, and she has alerts on her account. And the big one.
I don't let anyone else take my card. So I'm religious about that.
I also talked to the head of Crown Taxi, who echoed what Beck Taxi said. They've switched a lot of their cars over to contactless, meaning that people can pay with their phones. And they also had the same warning as police to just watch out and pay more attention.
And Chris, this is something we've talked about a lot this year and last, but it's been happening for a lot longer than that.
It certainly has. Police have been warning about this for years and even catching people. In 2017, police arrested a man and charged him with more than 180 offenses. And it's not just our area. Montreal's dealing with this as well. Back in 2015, they arrested someone and charged him, and there were 150 victims, and in that case, nearly $500,000. And really, this is something that police are warning about, not just in cabs, but anywhere that you may use your debit card.
Yeah, got to be on the lookout. Thank you, Chris.
A new report calls Canada a food waste disgrace.
There's a lot of edible food that's going to disposal that really could be better used feeding people.
According to the report, more than half of all food produced in this country is lost or wasted. I'm Ali Chiasson. Coming up, we dive into the details.
Colette is in the Distillery District. I'm going to get that right. A Distillery District for us
Distillery.
tonight. Got it. But she's not out having fun.
It sounds like you've been in the Distillery
And I was
District.
just going to say, you're not there having drinks with friends, and I'm the one who sounds like I've been having a drink. You have a preview of the Toronto Light Festival for us.
Yeah, that's right. It's been so cool, Dwight, to watch it get dark out here and see these lights really start to light up the sky. This is one of the largest open-air art installations in North America. So it really kicks off in earnest tomorrow. This is kind of a preview and goes all the way through till March 3rd, and it is free. It is open for you to come down and enjoy it. More than 35 different art projects you're going to see down here. And as I say, all lit up, and even you're going to catch this guy too. I wish he'd come a little closer so we get a little heat in here. Speaking of heat, or the loss of it, we should take a look at what's going on with our weather right now. In terms of our temperatures, we're really seeing the drop in these readings, but they're going to start to come up through the overnight hours. So right now we've got a range of about -5 to -7 that we're getting around the area. And then we have to, of course, factor in our winds. And once we do factor in the winds, then we get into a wind chill where it's feeling certainly much colder than that. As I said, through the overnight hours, we're going going to see our temperatures coming up a little bit, and then as we go into tomorrow, it'll be one of the milder days that we're going to have, because we're actually going to see the temperature rising to about 1 degree. So as we go through the overnight, we do have snow on the way. We're looking at 1 to 3 centimeters of snowfall coming through the area, ending by about 6 tomorrow morning. So as that happens, it does mean that tomorrow's rush hour is going to be a little bit of a wet one, and we'll be contending with some of that on the roadways. I do want to, if I can, give you just a little idea, a little taste of some of the other stuff going on here. In some of these installations, I have to tell you, they're interactive. So you can actually, we'll show you a little later in the show, you can pull on the pulleys and you can make things like this double helix move in the sky, all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk to one of the artists behind some of this, and all of that is coming up.
Oh, the guy's eating fire behind you, and we should just check out your Instagram page, because I saw some of it on the gram already. Very nice. We'll check back with you later, Colette.
That sounds great, Dwight.
A Canadian family is mourning the death of a loved one in West Africa tonight. Kirk Woodman worked with a Canadian mining company in Burkina Faso. He was seized Tuesday night by armed gunmen during a raid at the mine site. This morning, his family learned his body had been found 100 kilometers away. He had been shot. An increase in extremist violence in the region is behind a travel advisory warning Canadians to avoid non-essential trips there. Julie Van Duzen has been following the story for us tonight from Ottawa. So, Julie, what do we know about the situation? What exactly is our government saying?
Well, Dwight, just to mention a little bit about Kirk Woodman, he was a geologist for 30 years, much of that in gold exploration. His employer is Progress Exploration in Vancouver. It's a Vancouver-based company. They have issued a statement saying they are heartbroken over the loss of their colleague and friend. Woodman was kidnapped Tuesday night by, from the company's exploration camp, which is close to the border of Niger, by about a dozen gunmen. So the mining company was asked about the circumstances of what happened to him and the level of security for Mr. Woodman, if any, but it is offering no comment on that. So his family says Woodman was hard-working, loving, and there isn't a day that will go by that he won't be missed. The Prime Minister, opposition leaders offered condolences. Let's take a listen to Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland, followed by the NDP's Hélène Laverdière.
This is a terrible crime, and Canada is absolutely committed to working with the authorities in Burkina Faso to bring those responsible to justice.
We should think also about how to bring more stability in those regions, and to bring more stability is being more active in peacekeeping.
Julie, tell us more now about the Canadian travel advisory to the region.
Well, as you mentioned in the intro, this is a dangerous country. It's lawless for pretty well everybody, but especially for tourists and Westerners in general. So it's bordered by Niger to the east and Mali to the north, where Canada has peacekeepers. The Canadian government urges Canadians not to go there unless they have to. And especially to the border areas because of the risk of terrorism and kidnappings. Now, another Canadian, Edith Blais, and her Italian companion were traveling in Burkina Faso. They have not been heard from since December 15th. So I spoke to Aaron O'Toole, the foreign affairs critic for the Conservatives, about the travel advisories in general. And he says it's really time that Canadians and Canadian companies start paying real attention to these advisories. Take a listen. What about mining companies? Should they continue to operate there? And
I think they have to take a very good look at operating there under the current circumstances.
So the government of Burkina Faso has called this murder a cowardly assassination. There's an investigation underway, and all measures, it says, will be taken to find and punish the guilty.
Senior reporter at our Parliamentary Bureau in Ottawa, Julie Van Duzen. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
A local tattoo artist is headed to India for the second year in a row. Her job there? Medical tattoos, covering up scars and burns, some from acid attacks. I'm Lorenda Redikoff. I'll have more coming up.
A local tattoo artist is heading to India tomorrow on a medical mission. She's aiming not to just add art to people's bodies, but to cover up something that's already there, like scars and burns from acid attacks. Lorena Redekop shows us how.
Amber Gottsmeister mostly does cosmetic tattoos, adding permanent makeup and fixing eyebrows. Tattooed by someone else and in need of help.
I started doing a lot of correctional work for the eyebrows that turned blue and green and purple and orange and all these crazy colors. I started to see how that could translate into correcting skin tone.
That's evolved into this. Medical tattoos, tattooing over scars and burns, some the result of acid attacks. She first traveled to India to volunteer a year ago with the organization The India Project. Surgeons work on more severe cases. She also helped patients mask the skin condition vitiligo. In India, it can mean discrimination. She recalls one teenage patient she saw.
And he wasn't able to get married until those spots were filled. He traveled for hours and hours and hours walking to come and see me and having the spots taken care of, and then he came back the next day to bring me gifts and thank me, and yeah, it was very, very sweet.
There are also victims of fires, like one girl who'd been cooking at an outdoor stove.
One of the embers popped and attached to her clothing, but I was able to give her her eyebrow back and fill in some of the spots along her face, and yeah, she was really happy.
Following up with those former patients will be her first priority when she arrives, doing more tattooing and also seeing how their healing has progressed.
Last year, she worked on 75 patients. Her goal this year is 100 in a week and a half, but it all depends on how complex the cases are.
And this year, she'll also have a local Indian tattoo artist seeing what she does, so this work can continue after she leaves. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
We're going to take the bus. Yes. And there might be a double-decker bus, right? Mm-hmm.
25-year-old Elizabeth Langan is still recovering from Friday's fatal bus crash in Ottawa, trying to shake the nerves and get back on a bus. We're going to bring you her story a little later in the show. The Queen's husband, Prince Philip, was involved in a car crash today. He wasn't hurt, but reportedly was very shaken. It happened near a royal family estate in eastern England. BBC reports the 97-year-old was driving a Range Rover and that it landed on its side after a collision. Local officers say 2 people involved in one of the vehicles were treated for minor injuries.
They are the agencies that plan and manage health services across Ontario. But in just a couple of months, they could be dissolved altogether. I'm Farah Morali, and coming up, I'll have more on the PC government's move to scrap the local health integration networks.
Big changes could be in store for the way healthcare services are delivered in this province. CBC News has learned the Ontario government is looking to get rid of LHINs, or the Local Health Integration Networks. It sparked concern among patient advocates, but as Farah Morelli explains, not everyone is against the idea.
Local communities know best when it comes to their own health care.
This is about turning the resources and the responsibilities over to the regions.
That was the idea behind LHINs, or Local Health Integration Networks, brought in by the Liberals in 2007. But in a matter of months, that system could be a thing of the past. Multiple sources from both the healthcare sector and the government have told CBC News that big changes are coming, specifically that the province is looking to scrap local health integration networks altogether, some saying they're too expensive and just add another layer of bureaucracy. So what are local health integration networks, or LHINs, and how do they work? They're agencies created by the province to plan, fund and manage healthcare services in Ontario on a local level. There are 14 of them in total across the province, and those 14 oversee about $30 billion of funding a year from the Ministry of Health. That money goes to hospitals, long-term care homes and community health centres.
The LHINs were a problem, and the public in Ontario is right to be critical of them.
Patient advocates say the current system isn't perfect, but worry about what might replace it.
The problem is what the Ford government is proposing could actually be worse than what currently exists. It could privatize home care, and it could lead to centralization across massive regions of local healthcare services.
These LHINs are layers and layers upon healthcare bureaucracy.
Others say it's time for LHINs to go.
So the LHINs and sub-LHINs combined are wasting hundreds of millions to possibly billions of dollars of taxpayer healthcare dollars, which should be going to the front lines. It should be providing patients with home care. It should be providing patients with palliative care.
Today, the PC caucus spent the day in meetings and wouldn't confirm the details of its plan.
I'll leave you to talk to others on that.
Instead, the health minister's press secretary issued a statement which said in part, "Our government believes that everyone in Ontario deserves to have access to the services they need at home, in the community, or at a hospital. That's why we're working with partners in healthcare to develop our long-term transformational healthcare strategy." A statement that leaves more questions than answers about what the government's actual plan really is. Farah Morelli, CBC News.
See, it's like I'm doing ventriloquism here, because I can hear your voice in my head. Now, Farah joins us here. She's here with us. So it appears the LHINs are going, but how does this play into the PC's promise to end hallway medicine? We heard that throughout the election.
We sure did, Dwight. Over and over again, we heard from Doug Ford that he is promising to end hallway medicine. And the idea we think behind this plan is that it'll save money. That money could therefore go back into the system. But what we don't yet know is what the government plans to replace it with. Some sources have told CBC that they plan to replace it with 5 networks. Others have told us that they will be eliminating it altogether. So until we really know what their plan is, we won't know what that means when it comes to cost savings. And again, Dwight, more broadly on how the government will actually end hallway medicine.
All right, we're going to be following up on this. Thank you for that. And remember, if you have a story you would like our investigative team to look into, send us an email, torontotips@cbc.ca. John Tory announced a plan today to get the downtown relief line built 2 years earlier, by 2029. And it's all about logistics, doing things now that the city would usually do later.
Normally, until you reach the 30% design stage, you wouldn't be proceeding necessarily with land acquisition, with getting boring machines, with utility relocates. We're going to move ahead with that work now. In the theory, we know we're going to build the relief line.
Well, of course, that comes at a cost, $162 million that Tory is urging City Council to agree to. The downtown relief line is meant to ease overcrowding on Line 1. It would run south from Pave Station and connect into Queen from the east side, effectively bypassing most of the downtown stops. After another death of a homeless person in our city, there are renewed calls tonight for the government to take action.
I don't even know how we continue to call it a crisis, but that's what it is. It's getting worse. We know what the solutions are, and all 3 levels of government continue to refuse to do what they need to do about it.
Protesters gathered at the site of the latest death over the lunch hour. On Tuesday, a homeless woman was run over and killed by a garbage truck. The victim had been sleeping in a laneway near York and Adelaide. Just last week, a homeless woman died after she became trapped in a clothing donation bin. Advocates outlined what they say needs to be done to prevent more deaths.
We need at least 5,000 new rent-geared-to-income housing and supportive units per year until this crisis is over. We need the city to open all resources available now and provide more shelters and respites.
There's enough money in the system, all three levels of government, that they could provide the type of housing that people need. Safe, transitional, supportive, affordable housing.
Today's memorial included a moment of silence for the victims of homelessness. Flowers were placed at the vent where the latest victim was sleeping when she was killed. It's a stat that may leave you shaking your head. A new report says nearly 60% of all the food produced in Canada is lost or wasted. Alicia Son has more on the numbers and some simple ways to keep our food out of the garbage.
Food is in a state of crisis.
That's Lori Nickel, the CEO of Second Harvest, a food waste charity.
We produce enough food for 50 million people. We only have a population of 37 million, and we have 4 million people that are food insecure in Canada.
The Avoidable Crisis of Food Waste report identifies 30 root causes for food loss, including industry complacency. Food waste is just the cost of doing business. And conservative expiration dates. The best before dates printed on food mislead consumers. That's something you can navigate yourself in the grocery aisle. For example, with yogurt, as long as it's sealed and stored properly, it's usually okay to eat 1 to 2 weeks after the best before date. With milk, doesn't matter if it's opened or unopened, it's usually safe to drink 1 week after the expiry date. And for eggs, they're safe to eat 4 weeks past the sell-by date. If you're not sure, there's tons of information online. Pretty produce, as in, sure, it's aesthetically pleasing to have bountiful bins of fruits and veggies, but that's fueling overproduction.
There's a lot of edible food that's going to disposal that really could be better used feeding people.
Stores aren't donating surplus food. The Recycling Council of Ontario agrees that things are critical.
The policymakers, government should think about organics as a priority.
And if not to save money and food, it's also to save the environment.
It is a very powerful greenhouse gas emitter.
Most of us, frankly, can afford to waste. Food is, for most of us, cheap. It's used to be, food used to account for over half of disposable income. Now it's closer to 10%.
Policymakers and shoppers have a role to play.
We need to reevaluate food.
The findings from the Avoidable Crisis of Food Waste report will be presented to the federal government in an upcoming meeting. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Scientists have discovered the perfect mix of how you can be healthy and also keep our planet healthy. We'll tell you what to eat and what not to eat coming up a little later in the show. A family in Ottawa is asking transit riders to help their daughter recover from the shock of Friday's fatal bus crash. Elizabeth Langham was on the bus 269 when it slammed into a station. Now she's working to regain her confidence and get back on the bus because, as Robin Miller reports, it's a key part of her independence.
We're going to take the bus. Yes. And there might be a double-decker bus, right?
Mm-hmm. Lynn Filion is trying to keep things as normal as possible for her daughter Elizabeth. The 25-year-old was on her way home from an art program when the bus crashed. Panic set in, and another passenger helped call her parents.
And she just told me I'm going to try and shield her as much as possible from what she is seeing, and that I'll stay with her until her dad comes. And we just thanked her and appreciated everything that she did for her, because I could hear her in the background crying and being really upset, and it broke my heart that I couldn't be there to support her.
Elizabeth wasn't seriously injured, but her family worries the emotional trauma will linger. They say it's hard for Elizabeth to communicate when she's upset.
That would be terrifying for a young woman. So, well, for anyone actually, but a young woman with Down syndrome specifically. And also because when your emotions are high, it's hard for you to be verbal.
So, with their daughter's permission, Filion posted these photos on a community Facebook page. She's asking riders to look out for Elizabeth.
All the responses were just incredible, like so supportive and loving. And if they don't take the bus, they're like, my husband takes that bus, you know, and I'll make sure he sees this and he sees her picture and he'll reach out to her. And it's been one comment like that after another that have reached out to us, and I just feel really blessed.
On Tuesday, Elizabeth took her first bus ride since the crash with her mom by her side. She appreciates the community's encouragement.
I felt really happy and very blessed.
What do you want to say to those people?
I just want to say thank you for the hugs and the hearts and all the support I have given me.
Elizabeth's family says while they're not rushing her back onto the bus, they do hope she can return to being the strong, independent young woman she was before any of this happened. Robin Miller, CBC News, Ottawa.
If you see anyone else who has a car accident, just make sure you have a 7-year-old or 6-year-old to help.
A good thing her family had that. Sophia LeBlanc is being called a hero for saving her family after a horrific rollover accident. We'll bring you the amazing story from this incredible little girl in just a few minutes. A bit of meat and a lot of veg. That's the diet scientists now say we should be eating. A new study describes the Planetary health diet as a way to maximize health and protect the earth. In short, by taking a big bite out of the amount of meat we eat. Dominic Velitis has the details.
Well, the so-called Planetary health diet, which was unveiled today in the medical journal The Lancet, has been 2 years in the making. And the 37 scientists from around the world who are behind it believe it could provide a solution to one of the great challenges currently facing humanity. That is, how to feed the world's growing population a healthy diet without causing damage to the environment, something scientists say we're simply not achieving at the moment. Now, it may surprise you, but meat is included in this new diet, just not a lot of it. A burger a week or a large steak a month is okay. A couple of portions of fish and chicken a week is also allowed, but the rest of your protein should, if you were to follow this new diet, come from plants. Indeed, the Planetary Health Diet calls for a major push on fruit and vegetables, which should, scientists say, make up half of every plate of food we eat. But not all vegetables are included. Starchy ones like potatoes, for example, are banned. Now, as well as being kinder to the planet and help in meeting a growing demand for healthy food, those behind this new diet say it will also save lives. In fact, scientists believe it will prevent about 11 million people dying prematurely each year from diseases linked to unhealthy diets. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, London.
And ancient diets are on the minds of Canadian researchers here in Southern Ontario. They've made a discovery that's offering new information about what some Indigenous people ate 3,000 years ago. They found a cache of 140,000 quinoa seeds near Brantford, Ontario. The discovery is the first of its kind. Now, quinoa grows in Kentucky and Tennessee, but not in Ontario. Researchers say the find suggests that Indigenous community had trade relationships spanning the continent. Very cool. Okay, let's head back to Colette in the Distillery District. I'm saying it right now, and she has some cool installations to show us, just like that one.
Yeah, look at this. You know, I'm just hanging out here at the Toronto Light Festival. It begins in earnest tomorrow, but just trying to interact with some of the different light installations they have here. There are 35 of them. It's huge, so much to see, and it's been so cool to watch these light up the sky as it got dark here this evening. We're going to talk to one of the creative minds behind this particular installation in just a moment, but there's so much to talk about with the weather right now. We do have a special weather statement in place from Environment Canada because of the storm that's coming in for the weekend. So that's coming up for Saturday, and there's a winter storm watch that goes from Hamilton around through the Niagara Peninsula, where there the snowfall amounts could be up 20 centimeters, 25 centimeters or more. We're looking at 5 to 15 for the city, but we're still adjusting that as we go. Right now, okay, it is a little cool down here in the Distillery District. It's cool throughout the GTA as we look at some of the numbers that we're seeing in terms of our temperatures. We've been seeing kind of a range of -5 to about -7 degrees, and we'll see the temperatures rise a little bit through the overnight hours. Our wind chills, if we factor those winds in, and boy, I'm feeling it, is that it's feeling a little bit cooler than that. You can kind of knock off, in some cases, just as little as 5 degrees, but you can knock off much more closer to 10 as we get into these overnight hours, even though the temperature will be coming up. So a look at our radar for now. We have been watching as some of the light snow expected tonight. This is not the system for the weekend. It's a different one. Coming into southwestern Ontario, we can show you the broader perspective on the radar because it started in the afternoon hours back towards Windsor, pushing towards the London area. We'll be seeing that snow coming in later on this evening. It moves through the overnight hours as we roll this forward, and we'll see 1 to 3 centimeters in general around the GTA in terms of what we're going to pick up. Now, with the timing of this, as you watch this moving through, we're going to be seeing that some of this is going to linger into the early morning hours. Maybe not the latter part of the morning commute, but still it is going to be wet tomorrow morning, and the roads are going to make for things a little bit slippery and a little bit slower, even though we're not seeing significant amounts of snow. As we get a little bit closer towards Saturday, it's going to be towards Saturday into the afternoon hours especially, and overnight where we see this next system move in, and we'll be watching how it tracks to really know just how heavy that snowfall is going to be. So in terms of the accumulations, different models giving us different perspectives. We can kind of see through here that there are some that want to roll this is just for tonight, but then if we push this forward, we can see with the next system coming in Saturday, want to give as much as 30 centimeters or more down around St. Catharines area, at least getting close to that, and more like 5 to 15 for the GTA. So again, watching that carefully. Overnight tonight, though, your temperatures, we're looking at our lows kind of coming up just a little bit. It's not exactly going to be mild, but the temperatures coming up through the overnight hours, -2 for us in Toronto. Then for tomorrow, the temperature, one of the milder days we're going to see for a while. So we go up to 1 degree for tomorrow, a mix of sun and clouds and flurries into the afternoon hours, and then the really cold air comes in for the weekend. So the 5-day forecast really tells the story. It's not only the snow event coming for the weekend, it's how cold the temperatures and the wind chills at times times they're going to feel like minus 30 and even colder, so something to watch for. Okay, before we're out of time, I really do want to bring in one of our creative minds here with all these beautiful light installations, Andrea Delgado. Hi, thanks for joining me. Tell me a little bit about this piece.
Absolutely. So as you can see behind us, this is a creative collaboration between Young Offenders and Electric Perfume. We're both locally based here in Toronto. And we're here with Reese for the launch of their new Reese's Pieces peanut candy, which is essentially a peanut within a peanut. And that's kind of what gave us the inspiration to design our installation the way it is. So it's essentially like an infinite light tunnel with various rings within a ring, with a beautiful light chase sequence that speeds up as people walk through it. So it's completely interactive.
Yeah, I got to walk through it. I felt like the peanut inside the peanut in there.
You got it, exactly. And so, and that's where we were inspired by it. And so we welcome everyone to come, walk through it, slow it down, speed it up, and just enjoy.
Yeah, it's what's so cool is this is something that's good for any age, right? And it's a free festival too. So, but any age can enjoy these things.
Absolutely. We had a couple of kids come by already, and they were running right through it. So they're all having fun, and it's just for everyone, families, friends, everything.
And it runs till March 3rd, so you do want to check out the Light Festival down here in the Distillery District. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Back to you, Dwight.
Thanks, Peanut.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's going to stick, isn't it?
No, it's not. Thanks, Colette. When the police show up at your party, it usually means it's time for everyone to go home. But for a woman in Regina, the arrival of the Mounties made for a very special moment. Corporal Daryl Chernoff and some other members of the RCMP were invited to Elsie Shepherd's 100th birthday party this week. Now, when Corporal Chernoff heard Elsie saying she wanted to dance, he asked her son for permission and then took her for a turn around the room. Chernoff says it was a special moment for him, and he hopes it was for Elsie as well. Good on you, officer. Stay with us. We'll be right back. A 7-year-old girl in Nova Scotia has been recognized for her heroism after she helped rescue her family from a near-fatal car crash. Her mother's minivan went off the road, flipped over, and landed in a river. 3 children under 8 were on board. David Burke explains what happened next.
If you see anyone else who has a car accident, just make sure you have a 7-year-old or 6-year-old to help.
Sophia LeBlanc has some good advice for motorists. She would know since she was instrumental in saving her own family from a car crash in November. Her mother, Candace Hicks, was on her way to Oxford when her van hit a rut and she lost control of the vehicle.
We hit the guardrail, made a really loud noise. I think we still all have that noise in our head. And we flew off into the river. I didn't know how deep it was, so I just knew we were going into water. Yeah, it was really scary.
The van flew over an embankment, flipped, and landed on its roof in a river. Hicks and Sophia managed to crawl out a window, but the other 2 children were still trapped inside, and one was unconscious. Candace couldn't get her 2-year-old unstrapped because her arm was broken, so she got Sophia to do it.
I didn't know what to do because I didn't want to leave her standing there in the water and my son unconscious down by the river. So I asked Sophia to climb up and wave down a car.
The hill was so steep, Sophia had to climb onto her mother's back to get a grip and start climbing out.
But I knew I could do something safely and save my family. So that's why I felt a little because I thought I was a little scared. My heart, I think, was beating really fast.
She managed to flag down help. At the same time, a man living nearby saw what happened and called 911.
I didn't figure anybody was going to make it out, or too many people weren't going to make it out, but they got lucky. You know, they were really lucky.
Terry managed to cut Sophia's brother free from the van. Besides some cuts and bruises, the children are all fine. The RCMP were so impressed by Sophia's bravery, they presented her with an Act of Heroism award. Although Sophia was a bit disappointed when she learned her award might just be a piece of paper.
I thought, because I was so brave, I thought I would get something a little better.
But Sophia didn't need to worry. The RCMP and EHS had her covered. Along with the award, she and her siblings also received some new toys. David Burke, CBC News, Amherst.
That little girl went above and beyond, and so do many people here in the GTA, and that's what CBC's Toronto Community Champions is all about. We're recognizing the people and projects that are making the GTA a better place to live, work, and play. You've nominated your champions, and now we need everyone's help to vote on the best. Just head to cbc.ca/community champions. There you can read about the top 10 finalists who are making the GTA better. Vote for your favorite. You have until Tuesday, January 22nd. You are looking live at the Distillery District at the Toronto Light Festival. Looks like there's no snow yet, but that's supposed to change tonight. We'll check back with Colette after the break. Stay with us. We will be right back. Let's head back to the Distillery District for one last check with Colette. And this snow that's supposed to be heading our way, Colette?
Yes, we do. So we've got light snow tonight. We're talking about 1 to 3 centimeters through the overnight hours. But then it's this weekend, this storm that's coming in. The models are in disagreement about the track, but looking like 5 to 15 centimeters for the GTA. To the north of Highway 7, it'll be less than that. But Hamilton around to the Niagara Peninsula, that's a winter storm watch through that area where it may be 15 to 25 centimeters or even more. Some of the models taking it even higher than that. So that's the snowfall we have to deal with. Also very cold air. What do you do in those kinds of conditions? Well, you could come down to the Toronto Light Festival, and if you start feeling chilly, you could get some exercise like I'm doing here, because some of these light installations are actually interactive. So this one is called DNA, or the double helix, and as I pull on these pulleys, you see I get to make it move through the night sky. This is one of just 35 installations. Again, it is going on from tomorrow. Tonight's a preview. You can come down tonight. And it goes all the way till March 3rd, and it is free to the public.
Okay, watch out. Fire guy is sneaking up behind you. Thanks, Colette.
Oh, again? Is he coming back?
That's our show for tonight.
I'm going to go get warm.
You should go get warm. Thanks for watching. Mike Wise has you covered tonight at 11. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6.